Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is More on the Road with Bernard Moore the third, presented to you by More and More Sports Management. Nothing but more is definitely what we're all about. Thank you for joining us this lovely day. Now, I know for previous shows that we spoke about issues dealing with mental health, and we had opportunity to go to church and talk about mental health um, outreach. But now we're actually talking with a mental health counselor who has her own practice here in Byron, Mississippi called Inspiring Growth Counseling Service. Inspiring growth, change, and healing by meeting you where you are. So, like I said, they meeting me where I am right now. So it is a great opportunity to meet them here. Joining me today is Miss Diane Hoover, the owner and founder of Inspiring Growth Counseling Service. How you doing today, Ms. Hoover?
I'm great.
All right, thank you for joining us. I know that we've been missing communication with each other, but now thank you for taking time and talk with me about mental health. I know something that you definitely feel comfortable speaking about.
Yes.
All right, well, introduce yourself to our viewers and let them know who you are. Let them know who you are first, because I know we're going to get into why you do what you do.
Okay. My name is Diana Hoover. I have been practicing therapy in the Jackson area probably for over 10 years. I've been doing therapy for 15 plus years. Initially started in community mental health in the Yazoo um, city community. Loved it. I've done a number of different things as it relates to counseling and therapy, prior authorizations for treatment to starting in school therapy, day treatment therapy. I've done psychosocial rehabilitation counseling with adults, and newest love is private practice.
And Ms. Hoover, mentioned this. Why did you get into the mental health counseling profession?
So I always had a passion and love for people and helping people. When I left home, my first love and discipline was early childhood education. And I worked in the Head Start agency for 10 years. And there, I learned my best family work. I worked with many kids who did not understand how to express their feelings and emotions and demonstrated inappropriate behaviors because of a lack of understanding and knowledge and how to do that. And so within my first year of teaching, God revealed to me the importance of teaching, skill and understanding, how to express certain emotions. And so from there, I went back to school, started on my master's, did that, loved it, helped a lot of families learn how to communicate with each other. I worked hand in hand, student and intern, doing practicum, and kind of bridged the gap to meeting people where they are. That's kind of where my motto kind of comes, because I was going to pitch for a lot of resources and professionals and people in everyday life to have an understanding of how can this benefit me.
All right, in reference to why, how important is mental health counseling, especially now?
Mental health counseling now is very important. Now we have a real understanding as to the graphs and the impact of mental health upon our physical health and life structure nowadays. I think prior to COVID, it was more of a weighing scale of trying to understand the importance of it and the value of it. Many cultures did not partake and take advantage of it prior to COVID, but COVID was something that happened to the world, no matter what economic status you was in, no matter where you lived, no matter what color you were affected. And as a result of that, many people suffered from a common issue of anxiety and stress and worry, and it wreaked havoc on the world. And as a result of that, we all suffered. And that's when the health kind of hit the ground, because it was us as providers and professionals who helped to get people back to their comfortable, normal state of functioning in life, because it affected everyone, even the most highest professional doctor, no matter what, everybody was affected.
Now, you made a statement about normal life, and
And we all have different levels of normalcy, huh?
and when they were speaking about COVID,
Yeah.
we're going to get life back to normal. What was normal about life? Because we still dealt with different elements and issues. We're seeing the mad cow disease, the bird, what was it, the bird flu, and God, dealing with the mosquitoes. So dealt with stuff, but when COVID hit, it wasn't just like a territorial thing. It was more of a worldwide, and said, well, we're trying to get life back to normal.
Again, referencing back to what I said, we all felt like we was in some form of normalcy before that, right? But we all were dealing with things, just wasn't the same things, right?
Yeah.
But when COVID hit, okay, I had a common problem that attacked everybody. And it's like the world kind of came together to try to figure out how do we get through this, on so many different levels. It kind of bridged people together. It also told some people apart, because some family structure who thought they was coping okay, realized, what, I didn't deal with us. We didn't deal with family that much. But now we in this household together every day, all day. You know what? We can't talk about anything. Who are you? I knew you in this capacity. Now I got to know you in that capacity. Here it was where people thought they were really happy, realizing, hey, we broken. And some of those families and marriages didn't survive that.
Yeah. Now, with that, and especially though with COVID, everybody had to be in their particular household. You couldn't go visit a neighbor or a cousin or something unless you had the different vaccines, or had to have precautions, come in your spacesuit, or you had to walk around in a bubble.
Yeah.
How do you think that really hurt individuals that were already dealing with mental issues, and then here comes this? Again, we still dealing with the mad cow disease, the bird flu. Now we're dealing with measles. Now we still were dealing with things like that, but it wasn't to this capacity of COVID. How do you think that influenced the ones that are already dealing with mental issues?
So you know what? The ironic, funny part of that was, there were some people who, let's say, dealt with agoraphobia and didn't want to leave their house. Maybe had left their house for years. They coped well. It worked and benefited them. Some of the individuals that we may have looked at like something's wrong with you, they helped us learn how to cope in it. And so where it was, some people had mental health issues that were major problems, that might have decreased their, seriousness of their condition because of what we had to do. They were able to cope. We actually had to learn from their way of functioning. Because us who were used to getting out and about in the world every day, we wasn't doing well with being stuck in the house.
And also, how do you think the world is all about making money? And I say, money makes the world go round. God makes the world go round. It's still evolving.
Right.
But do you think that helped or hindered the business when COVID hit? Because you see, you have to make some modifications to how you operated your business. Because I know even with your profession, some people like physical interaction, and now you had to modify how you work with your clients and clients through telehealth or via technology.
Yes, I remember that very vividly because it was something that we all had to quickly adapt to. And like you said, it affected the world. I remember on a personal level at that time, I was going through some health issues. And I remember needing a couple of different outpatient surgeries. And we couldn't get in the hospital because the hospital was consumed with COVID patients. And so I remember the doctors kind of shifting and starting to do surgeries at night. And so there was overnight surgeries being scheduled. They was trying to get us in as quickly as possible before things were shut down. And so we ended up having to just adapt. You know, we didn't have a choice in what was happening. Even the government sector had to figure out solutions very quickly about how do we keep things functioning. And so, like you said, with the distance learning, one of the first things that we ended up having to do, like they quickly, immediately approved if you worked in this type of area, you know, you were approved to be able to do distance learning therapy. Like you were able to do online therapy without at that time. And that was okay for a while. And opening back up, you know, now they accountability. Now here comes this training. Now here comes this certification, this license that's required. And you know, they gave us a deadline to get it done.
And with that now, that was kind of stressful. Like I said, you okayed it for this period of time, but it's opening back up now. You put in deadlines and say, hey, you got to get this. That's put a lot of stress on you as well as mentally. It's like, man, I got to get this done. If I don't, I got to stop providing this particular service.
It depends on how you look at things, because everything in this world that governing force that governs how we do something, whether we're doing it right or wrong. And one of the things that I think was put in place was there was a protocol and resources that were provided in order for us to do those said things. Now it's up to the individual how important you think it is to get it done. And I think me, along with some of my counterparts, you know, we jumped on it. You know, we were in situations where we were provided those resources. They were at our, you know, availability to be able to find them. You know, they had them online. You could do them by video, live video trainings. You know, they had things out there. You know, I think they did think that part through. Um, Again, it was kind of about who it applied to at the time. You know, as far as being qualified to be able to get this said certification on how you did it. Because if you worked in a particular agency, you kind of was on the an umbrella of that owner or agency, you know, provider. And as you know, decided to maybe do more individual work in private practice, and you had to go get that for you as that individual to be able to function in that capacity.
Okay. All right. Again, this is more on a road with Bernard, the third presented to you by More and More Sports Management. Nothing but more as a slogan. Just definitely want to give thanks to those that definitely will help make this show possible. Want to thank my friends over at More and More Sports Management. Again, More and More Sports Management, looking for management service from contract negotiations to event planning, sponsorship, sales, and more. Give them a call at 601-260-3509 or log on to their website, www.mms-management.com. Also, Talking Sports Live with Rob J, Jamie Horn, Larry Dixon, Ed Bishop, and Bernard Moore. Join us every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. Live from Full Moon Barbecue, 1935 Main Street in Madison, Mississippi, or via social media, Facebook, Talking Sports Live, YouTube, TX Live MS, or X, which is known as Twitter, Instagram. And if you're unable to join us on social media, tune in every Sunday evening at 10 p.m. on the Loop 35 local channel here in the Jackson metro market area. Also, Full Moon Barbecue, Best Little Pork, 1935 Main Street in Madison, Mississippi. Give them a call at 601-853-1712 to place an order, or the catering at 601-713. If you ask cater, make sure that it's 10 or more to place an order with Full Moon. And if you talk to them, let them know you heard them more on the road, and they may throw you an extra cookie or two. All right, Monique's Dessert Boutique. Monique's Dessert Boutique, cake, muffins, cookies. Oh my! 646-926-9240. Purple Velvet Bakery at yahoo.com. Look them up on Facebook as well as Instagram. Hillcrest Christian School, 4060 South Sawyer Road. One family, one faith, and one future. Give them a call at 601-372-0149 or hillcrestchristian.org to schedule a tour and test, and so that you can potentially become a scholar of the small institution here in Jackson, Mississippi. Defining Moments with Larry Nix every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Central Standard Time, 104.3 FM, or log on YouTube as well as Facebook, Defining Moments with Larry Nix. Whew, get all that out the way. Again, we're here live at Inspiring Growth Counseling Service, 2104 Crossbridge Boulevard, Byron, Mississippi. Uh, Inspiring growth, change, and healing by meeting you where you are. I know some people say when they go to church, they're not going to go to church until they clean up all the bad stuff that they're doing. God wants you just as you are. So he wants you hurt and broken and stuff so they can help bend you together. And as well as Inspiring Growth Community Counseling Service, they're going to meet you where you are so that you can stop going through trials and tribulations to help you path. And again, we're talking with Miss Diane Hoover, founder and an inspiring individual of counseling. Now, I know we asked the question once before, why is mental health important? Why is talking with the counselor important when you're dealing with mental issues?
So I often educate my clients in understanding the benefits of counseling services. Yeah, we all know somebody that we can talk to, right? Or we got that friend or that relative that, we can talk to about specific things in our life. But the problem with that is sometimes we drop baggage upon those individuals that we love, and they don't always know or have the capacity to handle the things that we drop on them. But when we go to counseling, that's a non-judgmental space. You can come in there and freely feel safe to unpack some things, to talk about some things, and to get some sound um, judgment, some sound resources, skills that help you to manage this without the need of other people. Because a lot of us go to other people because we don't think or have the confidence or understanding of how to navigate through certain problems and situations in our life. But that's where counseling comes in.
Now, why are we so afraid to speak with, especially a lot of times when you go into counseling, it's best to go to someone that don't know you or know your background, because again, it's kind of, you can get in that judgmental state. Well, I know this person, or this person around this person, and why are we afraid to talk about it, especially to a stranger?
I think it's based on because some people want to definitely go to people that they don't know. And a lot of times you want to go to people you don't know, so there's no biases. You know, uh, there's no dual relationships. We don't talk about this, we don't talk about that, and we learn to suppress a lot of things. And that's a lot of the time what causes a lot of anxiety and depression within certain communities, and definitely taught how to suppress them and hold them in, which can eventually create trauma. Sometimes we experience some things and we see some things that creates post trauma. That situation happened.
Now, why
A major one, um, because they are expected to deal with so much. Uh, Avoiding burnout. I think that's an area that we need to figure more out about how to normalize that for them. Um, Another area, education. As an educator, There's an expectation, but nobody thinks about what educators have to put on their plate and them as an individual. Because even though they're educated at work, their mom, their husband, uh, their son, their daughter, they may be dealing with some mental health issues on their own. Um, Lots of things that go into consideration that doesn't get considered because of your title or your job description.
So when you're speaking about titles and job descriptions, how important is it for a supervisor or an owner of especially someone of a Fortune 500 company to really work with someone that's in the mental health profession, and don't sit down and talk with them? Or I know in education, it depends on, especially once you get in your college degree or getting your degree or obtaining your continuation of education, some counselors or advisors would inform you to get you a mentor. I want to partner you up with a mentor in this profession, so that if you have some issues, you can have someone to talk to or provide you guidance. Do they need to definitely stick with someone that's in that profession, or do you think they probably need someone that's diverse, such as a counselor that deal with mental health, as well as someone in that particular profession?
My answer to that is both. Both are very valuable and important, and they operate in different functions. I have a counselor, I have a mentor. My counselor is my safe place to be able to unpack some things where I need no judgment. My mentor is there to support me upon professional decisions and understanding without bias and, be able to tell me what's in my best interest. But they're different. But they both kind of operate in the same, but they're different. And then another aspect of that, sometimes when you're in this professional role, you may need a supervisor. A supervisor is somebody who operates with you on a professional level, but make sure that you possess and understand the skill base that you need in order to operate in whatever profession that you need to be in. So they kind of operate in a three part. It's like how we have God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. You got, your mentor, which is there to help you in a non-biased professional manner, but you can be vulnerable with them. Your therapist, who can help you therapeutically, medically, uh, necessity, which helps you to heal a lot of broken things that may be going on so that you don't cause harm to your clients or anybody else that you come in contact with. You can be accountable of that. And then your supervisor, who can also possess you with those necessary skills and practice up under the umbrella of them in order to make sure that you're where you need to be when it's time to do it on your own.
Let me ask you this. Now, not naming names, I know the HIPAA and confidentiality
Confidentiality.
rule. Working with someone of status quo,
Mhm.
do you see that sometimes difficult, or you say, hey, that's a Sunday walk in the park? Those are the Sunday walks in the park. Working with someone like a professional or a high office individual, that somebody know that in the community or in the world, popularity, people know who they are.
I think it has its pros and cons. I think as an individual, you need to understand your role and purpose in why you work in a certain entity, agency, or with a certain person or status quo, so that you know how to function and operate where it doesn't hurt you and it doesn't hurt them either. Um, it can be beneficial, and if you don't understand your reason, role, position, duty, responsibility, it may be hurtful too.
Now, how do you feel that, especially someone, I'm just saying someone in general, you're out in the public, though, hey, because everybody has an outside life or outside their profession. You're out in the public, you just enjoy yourself. As I say, not saying let your guards down, but you let your guard down. Hey, I'm out just enjoying life. And you see a client or customer, client, not a customer, you see a client
Hmm.
and they come to you and say, hey, this is my counselor, or she helped me through a lot. How does that make you feel in a profession? Or is it like, say, okay, well, I hear them talking about me, help promote my business, but I don't want to be put in that predicament saying that, hey, you talk with one of my friends, I want to come talk to you. And then you get in a session and it kind of mix in personal stuff about your other client and
So
bring
this is the thing about that. I mean, we can't help who we know, who we don't know.
Yeah.
But as the professional, it's your responsibility to keep boundaries and confidentiality, and not talk to certain individuals about other individuals. You know, that's where your professionalism comes in, your training comes in. Because I've had that happen to me, but I did not disclose that that client did. You know what I'm saying? So in that regard, I don't confirm or deny. Um, I may say, you know, here's my card or something like that. You know, you give me a call. I don't confirm or deny do I work with that individual or not. You know, you can ask me the question, I mean, I have to answer it because that's my responsibility to keep that person safe.
now, and with that, you got your red tape, your black tape, your gray area.
Hmm.
How stressful is that sometimes, though, especially when you put it in a predicament like that? Some people say, "Hey, well, I know you talked to my friend Sarah Ann, and she told me about you. Said that y'all talk about this." What type of predicament does it put? It's like, man, you send it back. It's like, why are they talking about what our session? But
And this is the
hey,
thing, I would quickly correct them and let them know, hey, you know, whatever I talk to someone about, that's confidential. And usually they take that. You know, it doesn't stop a person from trying, but it also puts you in a position to practice your skill. You know, listen to what they're asking you. Be mindful and vigilant of what you're doing and what you're not doing. Don't get comfortable. You know, we should always operate in that regard.
all right, now have you again? We're not disclosing any individual's names or talking about any individual particular cases. Have you ever had a individual client that comes to you? They want you to be the yes man of whatever they say. This is what they want because you know sometimes you have to sign off on something before, especially whatever profession that you have to sign off on them to get them cleared to do whatever. Have you ever faced any situations like that?
Yes. I think that comes with the territory. You have people who want to get over sometimes. But that's when you come across that, even if you get it wrong, I think that getting it wrong puts you in a position to understand how to get it right. You know, if you come across an experience like that, um, you may adjust how many sessions that you want to meet with someone before making certain decisions, you know, or completing certain paperwork, you know, because everybody is not out there to get over, but there are some that do. And when you come across it, you adjust.
Again, we're talking with Diane Hoover of Inspiring Growth Counseling Service. Talk about mental health is something that we, again, especially in the black community, we're afraid of talking about it. We want to keep everything in the house. It's an old saying that whatever goes on in the house stays in the house. Just like what they say in Vegas, whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. No, you don't need to. Whatever happens in the house stays in the house because that could cause a whole lot of traumatic issues, stuff that we deal with. Because if you can look at some of the serial killers that we're dealing with, the ones that the bombers, and if you go back and look at their family history or look at their background, they were dealing with a lot of trauma. And some people can handle trauma and some can't. So we definitely need to sit down and talk to someone in this profession about what we face. And I know they give a time limit now, and it does cost, but they do give a time limit because you don't want ones to just continue to just ramble on about a whole bunch of nothing. Now, Miss Hoover,
Hmm.
professional. Well, I'm not gonna say athletes yet. Entertainers
Okay.
that, especially the ones that play a lot of roles. Now, I know growing up, you see some people that you like that person, but they play this particular role. I don't like them in that particular role. Or this person, this is the type of roles that they play in all of the movies that they played in. They're good actors, but these are the roles that they play. Do you think they deal with a lot of mental issues because of they have to change characters, especially those ones that are popular that like I'm a Denzel Washington. Everybody crazy about Denzel Washington. Now he's one of our seasoned actors. He played in some acting some roles as an encourager.
Mhm.
He played in some roles that he was a butthole. He played in some roles that he was in between, and he played those roles well outside of or behind that camera and his personal life. Do you think he deal with mental issues because he constantly has to get into his role and he does it well?
Um, I think he could. I've never heard him really voice his challenges about it, but I've heard other actors voice their challenges about preparing for certain roles and studying these individuals' lifestyles and some of the physical scrutiny they have to go put their bodies through, losing weight, cutting their hair off, all this kind of stuff that they have to go through in order to do these said roles. It definitely has an effect on all of them. I couldn't see them being human and it not. And I think a lot of them too, after coming out of some of these said roles that they may have been doing for so many months or a year, they take time off to regroup and replenish themselves. That's what we call self-care.
And how important is that, especially someone like that act when they're shooting movies on something, it's constantly hard. Then they take a few days off. Then it's hard, especially like the TV series.
Hmm.
I'm gonna say Law and Order. They've been on what how many seasons now? About 30 something seasons, and they still going strong with those characters. And like you say, in law enforcement, that's one of the ones that you said that has a high risk of definitely with dealing with mental issues. How do you think those actors? Because you can see some of them like it has worn them down. Like season 1 through 30. Then I season 31, 32, and 45. They look like they're worn down.
Well, I think a lot of it is choice of lifestyle. Everything that we do in this world, we have a choice. um, when people make certain choices, they understand certain sacrifices that come with it. Like you mentioned, those actors. Some of those actors don't have everyday lives like we have. You know what I'm saying? They have to be on set. Their kids or something may have to be there with them, spouses or whatever. They have very short-lived situations. I know of one actor and actress who lived on separate ends of the country, and they were intentional about visiting each other in order for their marriage to stay healthy. So everything in life is about choice. When you get to a place where the choice is too heavy for you, you need to adjust that choice. You need to change it.
Now, how as though we talked about educators, depending on what institution you're teaching at,
Hmm.
if you're in a small town, private or public school with a class size of 10 to 15,
Hmm.
or you're in a major city, university institution where you got about almost 100 students in one class.
Hmm.
How important is for definitely for those professors? Now you have some professors that are real. They have their top notch on research. Uh, they're really good at what they do.
Hmm.
But you see them like, man, they're so stressed out. And sometimes in your profession, you want to see them, doc, professor, sit down somewhere, go take a break, go on vacation. Do you ever see? I'm just being. Do you ever see someone like that? You want to tell them go sit down somewhere, take some time off, or do I need to write you a prescription that said vacation needed?
I mean, you of course see people who go through stress and experiencing burnout. You can tell when people are not coping well. Um, and sometimes there are telltale signs of repeating certain things or whatever like that, that shows, hey, you may need a little bit of, recourse or downtime, and that's where uh, supervisors, bosses, managers are important. I think it's very important for individuals in those positions to check in with their staff members consistently or regularly. I know a lot of places don't really put that in place, but I think it's necessary.
Well, how important might say for uh, our state senators or our representatives to definitely get involved in more of the workplace and telling these companies whether it's private. I know it's going to be kind of hard for the private sector because the private say, hey, we don't follow up on your government laws because you're a public figure, but you don't follow we don't follow up on your law. How important is for those our local representatives or our officials in Washington D.C. to get into these businesses and say, hey, yes, we know you a regular workday is 8 hours, but you definitely need to provide them some downtime or either built in 30 minutes. Not saying the 15-minute break because do you ever take a 15-minute break? Sometimes, some days you go without even taking a lunch break.
Mhm.
How important is for our local officials, again, for our state representatives to get involved in the workplace and say, hey, we need to build in some downtime for our employees to definitely get a good productivity out of it.
I think it's important, when it relates to mental health, the government got involved, like, when it came to like Whitfield patients and stuff like that. And, they made a lot of changes saying that, hey, they needed to be out of service for X amount of time. How can you do that on the patient level but not think about that as it relates to the professional providing the service of having that said downtime or break in between to make sure that they're functioning appropriately? I think it's important. I hope that it's something that we can consider or figure out a systematic approach to making sure that we all are cared for, because you think about it like this, you don't want a doctor who's burnt out working on you or doing surgery on you, right? So if that's just as important for them, it should be just as important for the mental health profession.
Now, I'm glad you stated about Woodfield. I know just recently on the news that they just stated that it's opened up 81 beds
Mm.
at the facility for the incarcerated mental, I think the ones dealing with some mental health. Now, recently, I know a lot of facilities have closed down in the Mississippi area in reference to dealing with mental health. How important is, like you stated, that law enforcement is one of the, you consider a high risk profession where they definitely need to sit down and take a mental break. We have individuals in the communities on the street that are committing crimes, and some are doing stuff just to get help, but some of our law enforcement are there not saying they're not noticing or they're being disrespectful to those individuals because they're seeking help, but they think they're just being disrespectful. How important it is for law enforcement to have that training, as well as not just law enforcement, but when they go to the jail, when they go to jail or go to the detention centers or go to prison, how important it is for those workers that are dealing with those detainees or inmates or prisoners on a daily basis. How important for them to learn to deal with mental health.
I believe that that's very important for them to be trained, because how many times have we heard about accidents of death where people have been hurt because of lack of understanding or lack of knowledge? That happens every day. People lose their lives because somebody is not aware that they're having a mental break, or they're having an episode, and they're treated as if somebody who does not have issues. You know, that's real. And the only way for us to combat that problem is to create systems of training and programs of training that exposes these individuals in these positions, um, with the opportunity to be trained appropriately to be able to service, because you don't want them getting in a situation either where they do something, because that can have a mental effect on them, hurting somebody that they didn't realize was actually sick.
Now, not trying to insult your religious background or anything, and some of the stories in the Bible, you read the Bible forward to backwards and forwards, in reference to even Jesus was dealing with evil spirits. And we today see someone that may have an evil spirit in them. And some people may joke about they ain't nothing but the devil in them or things along the line. As with when Jesus' presence, and sometimes it made the evil spirits bow down and run.
Hmm.
How important is religion beliefs? Do you feel that it should work hand in hand with mental health, or it just depends on that particular person? Because we have a lot of people that don't believe in Christ and don't believe in God.
Yeah.
How important is it with the religious belief into work with mental health?
I think it's important, in my personal opinion, but I can't speak for other professionals. And I can't say what other professionals should or shouldn't do. I know that when it relates to um, licensing boards, they have to look at that across the board and take in consideration everybody. But I think in today's time, God has created platforms where people can be more creative with how they service, um, and how creative they can be with meeting people where they are and helping them to get the services that they need. Now we have Christian and faith-based counseling. Where at one time in this profession that wasn't a thing. But they all are different. They require different trainings and everything like that. So it just depends on the individual. It's all about that individual, what they're comfortable with doing, what population they're comfortable with servicing. And I think it's very important that people self-evaluate to understand it so that they don't hurt anybody.
Yeah, and with that also, again, not trying to call out any particular clients. Have you ever faced someone that your religious belief, and they may walk into your setting, or you may have a piece of a religious apparel or something on, and they say, "I don't want to work with you because of you believe this." Does that kind of
It hasn't happened to me as of yet, but it can happen. And if that does happen, that's that person's choice. Every client is not your client. And that's what some people have to understand. I think God has specific people for specific people. Some of the things that we go through, it's not just for us. Sometimes we're equipped with certain experiences in order to help educate somebody else how to navigate through that said similar experience.
And do you think it is best for some counselors personally relate to some of their clients when they're trying to talk about things that they're facing, that traumatic experience that they're going through, that they're faced, and you can kind of say, "Hey, well, I've been through that." Do you use any personal stories or personal words of encouragement to get them to say, "Hey, I understand where you're coming from"? Because a lot of people, when they talk about something, the main thing they're gonna say, "You don't know how I feel." You're right. I don't know how you feel, but I understand where you're coming from.
I think self-disclosure or personal things is important if you can make it appeal to what it is you're trying to teach that client. I don't think it's something that a person should be in the habit of doing a lot, but make it relatable if it can be beneficial to that individual situation. Um, but again, there are ways to be trained in doing that because self-disclosure is a skill, you know. Um, but I don't think that therapists should get in the habit of bringing their personal issues into counseling.
And I know I'm watching too much TV. I'm saying, I watch too much TV. When sometimes some clients get too attached, and like you said, you have to do your sessions. You give them so many sessions again. Well, let me pull it back a little bit. Are there any way you say, "Hey, well, I can only provide you 3 sessions, depending on the situation"? Or do you have your situation based off of?
It's a lot of dynamics that play into what recommendation you make for a client. It could be financial situation, it could be, what your insurance approves, it could be I can make a recommendation on what you need, but you may not be able to afford that. So that again goes back to my motto of meeting you where you are. Me making the best sound professional judgment call based on your medical necessity to what you may need and kind of working with you with where you are because therapy is not just in the therapeutic office. It also happens outside of the office. And, I stress to my clients frequently that, you only get out of something as much as you put into it. And you have to do the work outside of this office, in order for you to benefit as fast or slow as you would like it to be.
Do you have ever seen any? I call them repeat offenders.
Mm.
You talk about it, they worked out it. Miss Hoover, I'm good, thank you. For and you can see that they're better. You can see
Mhm.
the reaction of things like that. But here they come back again a few months or halfway down the year and say, "Hey, Miss Hoover, I need to sit down and talk with you.
Yeah, you do see that. But it's not necessarily like a repeat, as you call it, a repeat offender. Sometimes we have different problems. Life don't stop life.
Yeah, you're correct.
And I think that once you learn how to utilize a treatment, you should normalize. This is like if you go to the doctor, you get a cold this time, you get the flu, you ain't gonna go to the doctor.
Yeah,
It's a
depends on
different,
that.
it's a different, it's a different thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's how therapy should be normalized. Okay, I got skills in this area, but this is something I haven't encountered before. I need help. Let me go get some help. I know where to go get my help. And I think it's important that individuals have knowledge of their treatment plan, the treatment prescription for why you talk. Where are you in your plan? What is your goals? What objectives are going to get you to those goals? What interventions help you meet this said objective? Why are we doing what we're doing? How long are we going to do this for? All of that is in that plan.
Now, have you ever had some clients that you've seen now, and they'll probably come to you, give you a success story. Say, hey, I've been doing what we've been talking about, and I feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make you feel when you see success story?
Amazing, because that is the goal. The goal is, I tell my clients all the time, when you get to a place where you don't need me no more, then that's God saying, job well done. Because we should never have you in a situation where you're codependent on us. But if you need us, we're here. That's why our job entails making sure you have skills, making sure you know how to find specific supports, um, specific to you. Making sure you can identify those places and situations in your life that are causing those stressors. What are you doing about them? Therapy can be very complex, but at the same time, it all works together for the good.
Now, when you have the clients that come in, and sometimes they've tried the steps of the process,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't feel comfortable doing some of the steps of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Is it difficult sometimes? Like, man, like you said, I got to meet you where you are. What can I do to help you get to where you're trying to go, but where you need to go, but you're not doing what we advise of you?
So I tell my clients all the time, communication is everything. I tell them a lot of time in the consultation before we even start therapy, the only risk that I found is that you come here for one thing, but you realize that you got to do something else in order to get to where you want to go. That's a part of it. The thing that I ask of them is to be transparent and let me know when we get there, because I've been in therapy and I've had a therapist to ask me to deal with something I wasn't ready for. And no matter how many different ways I told that person I was not ready for that, they did not want to hear me. And so I also advise that when you come across situations in counseling, you try to talk them out. If it's something you don't like, talk to your about it and see can you all adjust it, or come to some level of compromise to keep to you working together. But if not, it's your choice and right to find what you need in somebody else.
All right. Now, man, shit is not literally you had to do it, but you felt like you had to do it. Some cartoons or some movies, somebody, and I know it's all scripted. Somebody just run off into my, they're just going crazy, and then a friend get there and grab my and say, "Smack," I said, "Get yourself together." Have you ever had to do that to a client?
No, no. But have I had to give somebody a reality check? Yes. Yes, I have. You know, sometimes you do have to challenge individuals, and sometimes that's what they come here for. But again, in the initial stages of identifying what it is that you want to accomplish from this experience, that's not my choice, it's your choice. I tell my clients all the time, you're the expert in your life. I'm just here to help guide you. It's not my choice. I don't advise. I can make recommendations. The choice is up to you. And I would never speak for you.
Now, when you telling your clients, say you talk to them about the situation they're going through, especially with some type of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
such as molestation or death of a close one, a death right there in your face, or a dramatic move, or a divorce, and you provided them with counseling service, and then again, like we say there, they come hit you back with, you don't know how I feel.
I don't think we should ever try to put ourselves in positions of knowing how people should feel. We're not them. And nobody, I personally can only tell you what they feel. I can't assume anything, you know. And when I'm operating in that place of knowing it all, I need to check myself.
Now, I know I've, with religious counsel, been a minister. Some people come to you, ask you for advice, and I try to tell people, I understand what you're saying. I said, like I said, I don't know how you feel.
Empathize.
Yeah, I said, I understand what you're saying, but this is what I would recommend. Then again, you don't know how I feel. You're right. I don't know how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, but I'm just trying to help you understand. You came to me and asked me for advice. I'm just trying to provide you some sound judgment that God has blessed me with this information to share along with you. Now, back to the religious aspect of it. I know we conversed earlier about how God has blessed you with X, Y, Z. Do you ever see yourself bringing in the Word of God into some counseling sessions?
Um, there have been times, but that's only with the consent of that client. I don't choose to force, my religion upon anybody. Everything is a choice, and I would never get in a place where I'm combative with a client about religion, because God tells us to not do that.
Yeah, don't argue with the food. Not kind about the food, but hey, you gonna do that? Go right ahead. But do you see yourself though? Again, if the client brings it up, well, I'm gonna say if the client opens that door, you see yourself inserting more scriptures about.
I always get consent first.
Okay.
I always get consent first. I would never just freely keep giving something. I will always ask, "Are you okay with that? Do you mind if I share this?" And a lot of the time they do. It's all in how you present it to them. You know, if God gives me an opportunity to be able to help somebody in that regard, I'm going to do that.
All right. Again, this is more on the roll with Bernard Moore the third, presented to you by More and More Sports Management. We're here at Inspiring Growth Counseling Service, 2104 Crossbridge Boulevard in Byron, Mississippi. Contact information 601-985-7058. And the motto is Inspiring Growth, changing and healing by meeting you where you are. Don't try to clean yourself up. Don't try to figure it out and then, hey, I need to talk to someone about it, because we can mess some things up. I can put myself in that boat too. I mess some things up, and then I go to God, hey, God, help me with this. And then God gonna sit and scratch his head. He gonna give me that old dad look. Dude, I told you to come to me first before you even try. So definitely, if you're going through some things, like, not saying that I've experienced some traumatic situations, but I've seen trauma. I've seen some things that, just like I said, the known person can handle. Working in the community, being in certain type of professions, being in a car accident, and then seeing the aftershocks of the picture. I'm like, man, that was me. But you had to talk to someone, because I sometimes I talk to people on the slide that I know that has the background in counseling. Like, so I can talk to Miss Hoover, just converse with Miss Hoover, and she don't know that she's actually counseling me. We just talking, but and so that's the way that sometimes that's. I'm not saying I'm a trained skill at that, but that's a trained skill that sometimes you can do, especially being in this profession. Well, Miss Hoover, I really do appreciate your time for joining me this day and sharing your experience and talk about your profession, because it's definitely something that is definitely need to be done. Is there anything else that you would like to share amongst the viewers and the followers about what we can do to not be afraid of talking about our issues and seek help and assistance? Because it's a lot of, besides the church, besides Big Mama, besides our partner at the barbershop that don't know his left from right, this profession. Is it something that you would like to share?
I want to leave with people about just being open to the process. You know, if you tried it your way so long and it's not working, nothing's changed, let's try something different. It can't hurt, it can only help. And if it gets to a place where it hurts, you have the right to stop it. Um, And also assess your level where you are in change, wanting change in your life. Because people are at different levels of being ready for change.
Well, I know I got one more question. How can they get in touch with you and ask you for help without seeing you out in the supermarket and come out and like I said, I almost know how you look, how your child may act out in the store. Mom, I want this piece of blow pot. No, you can't get it, and they just fall out and have a temper tantrum. How can they reach you instead of just coming into the supermarket have a temper? Hey, I saw you on the road. I'm having issues and stuff like that. Now, how can they reach you without on as I say on a more discreet level?
They can call me at 601-985-7058, or they can email me at inspiringgrowthcounseling@gmail.com.
Well, again, Ms. Hoover, I really do appreciate your time for joining us this lovely day. Now, I know I'm not going to go out to see any traumatic issues because I don't need to see nothing. I'm going to go out and have it, enjoy and be blessed. But again, we thank you guys for joining us this day. It's a very exciting day. As you can see, the quotes behind me. God, what is this? I'm looking at the wrong show. Ability is what you're capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do. Attitude determines how well you do it. If you believe in yourself, anything is possible. That's some. I know you can see part of it, but that's what the scripture or the saying that is behind me on the wall. Man. No, I really thank you guys for joining me. Much love to you guys. You know that we definitely have to get out of here. 1 + 1 = 2.